guys, so I have a long list of videos I want to do. Some of these I don't want to do, but I mean, there's one I actually don't want to do. On this one, I don't know. I might do that video, I don't know, but I'm looking through my list here and I'm picking out which one I want to do in this one. So when you read the title, you already know what it is. So I'm gonna use the one that is unlike the rest. It's something that I think I could talk about in about 20 minutes. Alright, so in a previous video I talked about the treaties. Well, I didn't talk about it. ChatGPT brought it up, and it says something about the treaties of Rome made up the foundation of the European Union. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that is. What are the treaties of Rome in relation to, well, let's say, and how does it relate to the European Union? The treaties of Rome are the foundational treaties that created today's European Union, even though the EU itself didn't exist yet under that name. What are the treaties of Rome? Signed on March 25th, 1957, entered into force January 1st, 1958, location Rome, Italy. Signatories are 6 countries: France, West Germany, Italy, Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg. 1957, West Germany. The two treaties. The phrase Treaties of Rome actually refers to 2 separate treaties signed at the same time. The European Economic Community, the EEC, and the purpose is to create a common market among member states. So that's kind of like the, you know what that reminds me of? Although it happened much later on. The Economic Community, that sounds like the Comic-Con that they had in the Soviet Union, but that was in, geez, when was that? That had to be somewhere, and when was that? I should know this. I know it was during Stalin's time because he was the one who came up with it. It was during his time. Okay. It was established in January 1949 to facilitate and coordinate the economic development of the Eastern European countries belonging to the Soviet bloc. So this seems like it was kind of like a competitor of Comic-Con, based on what I'm seeing. The Economic Community, at least. Purpose: create a common market among member states. That's interesting, and the reason why I brought that up, and why I thought about that, was because it said West Germany. If you don't know, at the time, during the Cold War, you had the East Germany and the West Germany. West Germany was the capitalist, and East Germany was the communist Soviet, under that control. So I can definitely see there's a relationship there. The true treaties. I already read that. Let's see. Key goals: free movement of goods, free movement of services, free movement of capital, free movement of people. Basically, I mean, the West Germany was already like this, but I guess they made one like that. So, the Soviets wanted to go through West Germany. That's the way I think of it. They created something that would block that from a societal standpoint. Even if they already had that, it was just to keep a barrier, so they wouldn't come to West Germany. I could see that. This is the direct ancestor of the modern EU. 2. The European Atomic Energy Community. Euratom. Interesting. I didn't hear about that. Purpose: coordinate peaceful nuclear energy development. Shared research, common safety standards, secure nuclear fuel supply. Euratom still exists today as a legal entity. Why they were created, context matters. Post-World War II, Europe had 3 major goals. Prevent another European war. Rebuild economies. Build former enemies together so war becomes irrational. Oh, bind former enemies together so war becomes irrational. So it did have some sort of thing with the East Germany and West Germany. I mean, I already figured that, but yeah, it prevented them from moving forward. Either side from moving forward. But then when the USSR fell, and then you had the whole NATO thing, and then they said, well, push that into Ukraine. So it really wasn't. I'm not going to talk much about this, but I might have hinted at it before. But when you do that, you're working in a negative space where if you take away that and you allow your enemy to come through, you basically gave them leverage against you on purpose. For those who don't know what I just said there, keep rewinding it and maybe you'll figure it out. The core idea was simple. Countries that share economies are less likely to fight wars. Not entirely true. That's a theory, but I will say that the United States military does work like this. In fact, I've heard of it. I don't know exactly if that's true or not because it doesn't completely fill in the blanks. They say that's why we go to war with Afghanistan because currency, when you use currency and you try to exchange currency or you try to change the currency, then you go into war where you're forced to do trade. I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, it might look like that, but I think it's more about you can use the Middle East as leverage against certain things and against the United States and currency. So it's a double-edged sword when you bring up the information behind it because there's always two sides to it. There's what we see as United States citizens, and there's the other side where they see it in the Middle East. They're like, well, who's playing who at that point? And the military stands in the center of that. I mean, I can't really say much about that because that's the information. I can't assume or speculate any more than that. All I can say is the military is involved, but the perceptions of that is different, and our perception of that is not necessarily the reality. It looks like reality, but it doesn't fill in all the gaps. It doesn't make. It makes sense at a certain standpoint, but if you go deeper into it, it doesn't line up. So, I think of it more of it as a answer to the Comic-Con community and the Eastern European blocs in the Soviet Union. I don't really see it as a country that shares economies are less likely to fight wars. I think that's more of a theory. I wouldn't say anything like that. I wouldn't do anything like that. But I guess you can't really say, well, we're just answering something that the Soviet Union did because that makes us more like them. Actually, you know what? This does go in line with the thing I don't want to talk about, but I'll talk about that in a future video, since it does talk about economies, capitalism, and all that. And how you can use information like that against other countries. We see this in the United States they don't catch that. I don't know why it's going unnoticed. I mean, I guess in some situations it is getting noticed, but it's very, very niche. You actually have to know what you're doing. You have to see below the surface. Countries that serve economy are less likely to fight wars. Define war. Define economy. I mean, these are things that are being used against the United States to this day. So, very interesting. Um, so it says France and Germany being economically tied to the real strategic was the real strategic heart of it. Definitely Germany. Um, I don't know much about France though. I know that the Soviet who was it now? It was I think it was Nazi Germany. They went underneath this archway, which is a really big deal for France. It's I forget what it's called. Let me ask. We go back to that question in a minute after I read this. How this leads to European Union. The Treaties of Rome started as a chain reaction. 1957 Treaties of Rome EEC created. 1986 Single European Act deeper integration. 1992 whatever that is, Maastricht Treaty, European Union formally created. 2009 the Lisbon Treaty, modern EU structure. So it's a thing that's continually evolving, in other words. So no Treaties of Rome, no European Union. They are the bedrock. So here's my question. Was it always planned to have a European Union from 1957? Or was that just something that just happened to come about until later on? Well, based on this information, how it keeps evolving, it shows that they had no idea that a European Union was going to be created. Or maybe they saw it as a utopian kind of structure that it always kept evolving until it got perfect. Or it was, or they did have the plan to create a European Union after World War II, maybe after World War III, maybe after Cold War, but they wanted one after all this took place. It could be both ways. It could actually be both at the same time. Why this still matters today. Many current EU debates trace back to Rome. Sovereignty versus integration. Economic unity versus national control. That's kind of irony, though, because if you're using Rome had a lot of power and a lot of empire, so it's kind of like, I don't know. I mean, surely they thought, well, that sounds a bit ironic, and we don't have any standing point for that. So that wouldn't make sense if they used like the Soviet Union as a foundation for that, because that already existed at the time under very what's the word? Very cohesive, solid structure, and then they took. I see that. I can see that. And it says free movement of people, immigration, politics. It's kind of like it took it as a foundation, but it also was to be used against them. Not sure if that would have really worked. It's shared rules versus national law. The Treaties of Rome committed Europe to integration as a long-term project, not just cooperation. So it was an evolving thing. But did they have the idea of to have an EU? See, we've seen this before with the SPU, which I do want to make another video on because there's something about that I do want to get more into. One sentence summary. The Treaties of Rome created the European Economic Community in 1957, establishing the economic integration that evolved step by step in today's European Union. Which is kind of like the utopian view of Comic-Con, because that was the economic integration, like I said, with the Eastern European, Ukraine, Belarus. There was probably eventually other ones like Romania, which would have been a satellite state. They weren't part of the USSR, but they were on the edge of it. But that would be Central Europe. It's strategically it would be Eastern, but geographically it would be Central. They evolved step by step into today's European Union. So it's kind of like the reverse of the USSR. If Comic-Con came before the USSR, then it would have created the USSR. But like a utopian version of it. That's what I'm kind of getting at, kind of seeing in this. Okay, what is that archway in a sentence? It was the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin, a historical triumphal arch that Nazi Germany used symbolically for parades and displays of power. Yeah, so in France it's a really big deal because whenever they got into war, they would do parades. France would do these parades, and it was showing national sovereignty. So when a foreign country comes in, and they have their military destroying everything, wanting to take over, and they go underneath the archway, then that's seen as a really triumphal thing for the other side. And yeah, that's a really big thing. I mean, that's like if in America, if you had, if you were in Washington, D.C., and people were just burning flags from another country, like all the flags that were hanging up like in the White House and everything, or they took over the White House, that's the kind of, well, it's not that really the same thing in that case. But I'm talking about that national, that very strong national thing. When you see a symbolic structure, when you see a symbolic movement like that, White House would be too much. That would be too much. But maybe a flag in D.C. or maybe we don't really have anything like this in the United States. Maybe if there was a march maybe on Independence Avenue. We don't use a lot of symbolism in the United States. There is a lot of symbolism in D.C. Like you got Independence Square, Pennsylvania Avenue. I mean, not Independence Square, Independence Avenue. And which is ironically always blocked off. No, wait, you got that wrong. It's Pennsylvania Avenue that's blocked off because it's the. Wait, what am I thinking of? Where is. Using Safari here. Okay, Independence Avenue is. That's I know where that's at. It's between the Space Museum. Well, there's nothing really on the other side, except it's not showing up on here. But I know that the Holocaust Museum is on the other side, and you have the National Mall on the other. National Mall is on one side, and the Holocaust Museum is on the other. And on the other side of that is the White House. So you got White House on the left side, National Mall is in the middle, and then on the other side you got the Holocaust Museum. It's interesting. I'm saying the Holocaust when, and in between that street, in between there is Independence Avenue. I don't know why it's there. The other one on the opposite side is Constitution Avenue. And then you have President's Park. President's Park is on the other side of National Mall in front of the White House. Or behind the White House. Is it in front or is it behind? I can never remember. Like, what's the difference, you know? Yeah, the International Spy Museum is underneath there. Is like on the other side of the Holocaust Museum. I see that on here. I just know that a lot of you won't know what that is. But anyways, yeah, the Brandenburg Gate. When you go underneath it, it's a big thing. Um, that's like if you go to in Ukraine, if you have a march through Independence Avenue, the irony right there, and we're not. Oh my god, I'm making a lot of mistakes. Not it's Chris Chattox. I believe that's how you pronounce that. Chris Chattox Avenue. It's right there in front of Independence Square in Ukraine. It's the main street. There's, I mean, Kiev is a huge place, but the main street, if you're talking about independence and all that, it's Chattox. Yeah, Chattox. It's like, I believe it's the longest main road in Europe. I think that's what it is. It might be the longest one in the world. I don't remember. What is the longest road in Europe? Well, not longest road, Main Street. Sorry, guys. Nevsky Prospect. What is that? It's an artist on Apple Music. Huh. It's like 1.3 miles or something like that. How long is... I don't know, like, spelling this word because it's hard to... Chattox. Chattox. I don't know why I say Chattox. It's Chattox. Anyways. How long is Chattox? About 1.2 kilometers. Yeah. I was thinking 1.3 miles, but yeah, 1.3 kilometers. I think that is... Let's do a conversion on that. 1.2 kilometers to miles. 0.7 miles. Alright. I know that they hold a lot of the Independence Day parades there. Khrushchev is known for being Kiev's Central Boulevard, a wide monumental street famous for Soviet-era architecture, public celebrations, political rallies, weekend pedestrianization. I was there like every day. I was there every day. And its role as a symbolic heart of modern Ukraine. Yeah, but it's like there's like... I know that coming off of Chattox is known as the... It's also the name. It's the deepest underground subway in the world. It's either one or two. The other one I think is in like South Korea. I think. What is the deep? I will know it if I see it. If it comes up. Yeah, that's it. It's also the name. It's in Ukraine. It's right off of Chattox. well, you got, well, it's not really off. You gotta go a little forward. It's next to that Soviet hotel. I'm not gonna go deep into Ukraine's Kiev's things. Um, Maybe they could tell us a street because I know that it's in Kiev. I've been on it. It's like it takes like 3 to 5 minutes to get down there, and there's escalators, but it takes you a long time. It says, "Was it in Kiev, Ukraine?" Yeah, I've been there one time because I do not like heights, and it's really steep. On Sonona, yeah, I've been there. Um, so yeah, we were talking about the treaties and all that, and Nazi Germany walked on. I know we went on a tangent completely with the whole Independence Avenue and Independence Square and all that, but since I brought it up, I wanted to correct myself. So yeah, um, so interesting. In summary, I would say that um, was kind of like an answer to Comic Con, but not official, not maybe officially, but not in the public space. Um, but I could definitely see that. Maybe that was unintentional. Maybe it was intentional. But I would say that definitely, looking at it hindsight, it definitely does look like it correlates, and it looks like there was trying to fight on that without going into being Soviet Union territory. So they had their boundaries. So modern day, or the predecessor of the EU, would you could say it was Comic Con. That's what I would. That's what I would say. That's what the information looks like when I read it. It has those the signature to it. So yeah, I guess I'll end it here. Um, what else I want to talk about? I don't really have much to talk about. I just gotta do these videos. But actually, now that I wrote that, I should delete this. Alright, so guys, I see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.